Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this video I'd like to take a closer look at menstruation. Is PMS all in your head? Why do women bleed? Why do women not bleed? Is it healthy to bleed? Is it healthy not to bleed? Why do some raw women stop bleeding? Well, first of all, let me acknowledge my limitations. Yes, I am a man, and I realize how offensive this subject might be to have a man talk about it. What does he know? I agree, I can't speak from experience, but I've got a lot of anecdotal evidence. And remember, anecdotal evidence is like all science, all evidence, all observation. Not all of it can be trusted. But I've been accumulating information on this subject for quite some time, and at least I did in the beginning when I first went to message boards. I was fascinated by this subject because I knew my limitations. I wanted to see what all the other women had to say about changing their diet and how it affected their body in these terms. And I created a really interesting file. It's one of my most interesting files I think I created, simply because I know my limitations, and it's full of anecdotal evidence of what happens when we get clean inside and our lymph system doesn't use an alternative channel to get rid of things. Now, I know this can be very offensive for some women because it implies, oh, you're dirty. We all are dirty. You just got to know the way to get rid of it. Remember, our body is very simple. Or it can be if we want to make it simple. It's nothing but a bunch of cells and two fluids. Blood brings in the food, there's the kitchen. The cells have to get rid of the waste matter, it dumps it into the lymph system, there's the bathroom. What happens with our so-called experts is they study the cells, but they only study specific cells, so they don't know about all the other cells. And they study the blood, but they don't study the lymph system. And virtually all of our diseases are mainly coming when our lymph system backs up back into the tissues. In the body's wisdom, it knows to go for organs that can exit the body, so it goes to the skin, goes to the nose and sinus areas, colds and flus, goes to the lungs, and then they call that pneumonia. These are all alternative channels of elimination. They're known as fontanels. And when our body uses our uterus and vagina as a fontanel, or as fontanels, they call that menstruation. It's normal. You're supposed to do this. And I'm reminded of this professor in a class I took 40 years ago in college on sex education. And he said something back then that really offended a lot of women. I can sure understand why, because he can't speak from experience. But he said he had reason to believe that it's all in your head. And he was convinced it's true because there was this study or this account, maybe someone wrote a book, I can't remember the details right now exactly how the story came about, but there was a ministry or a minister out on an island, I think, somewhere, and he noted that none of the females on the island or in this community had any PMS symptoms. But they formed a little ministry there, and they had some people come work for them, and one of them was a little girl, and she just happened to come down with these PMS symptoms. So he said, it's all in your head. You've been brainwashed by the women in my household because they're suffering with PMS symptoms, and now this little girl is psychologically suffering from them. Of course, I can't verify this, but I think I know what's happening. I think you do too. Poor little girl started eating their food. So the better we eat, the less we bleed. The worse we eat, the more we bleed, and that's what's reflected in this amazing file I've accumulated. I have many times taken my file preview and thrown it up on message boards and say, come on ladies, chime in, tell me what you think. And virtually every woman goes, this is exactly what's happened to me. I'm still healthy. There's a bad way not to bleed. If your body fat percentage goes below 10%, maybe even 12%, your body might stop ovulating. That's not healthy. And if you stop ovulating, you won't be menstruating either. So lack of menstruation doesn't mean you're healthy, but it doesn't mean you're not healthy either if your body fat percentage is high enough and you're still ovulating. So what you'll see over and over and over in my file are women saying, I'm healthy. I'm not even that thin. I'm about 20% body fat. I'm not chunky, but I'm not super thin as a rail. And I know I'm ovulating. Ladies, you know there's a simple test you can tell if you're ovulating. And as long as you're ovulating, that's what you have to be concerned about, because if you're not ovulating, you're going to have a lot of serious health problems. And we see this around a lot with young women, where they're going into having osteoporosis, which I'll talk to in my next video. But we have to realize that we are what we eat. And when we eat better foods, our body is able to handle its waste matter better, and then there's not an occasional need to get rid of it, which is why we have colds and flus. It's when the waste matter in our lymph system goes above a toleration point. I explained this in more detail in 2 videos I've done, Healing Secrets Revealed and Medicine is the Ultimate Tool of Control. I'll put the links down below. I highly recommend you watch these. I've codified what many people have said into one little section. It's not that complicated when you understand that our system just gets dirty inside and the waste matter backs up. It looks for an exit. The skin, the nose, the sinuses, the vagina, the uterus. The body's trying to get rid of stuff. The lungs, oh my God, pneumonia. Stop feeding that person and you see what happens. Now, as a wellness consultant, I coach a lot of people and I've coached a lot of women. And it's always interesting when that time of month comes, which it usually does more than once while I'm coaching them. I usually coach most women for about 3 months. And it's interesting each time it comes, it's less severe. And in many cases, it's so interesting to hear women say, well, I started my period today and I didn't even know it, because usually I get 2 or 3 days of warning signs. And I didn't have them this time. And I'm not having hardly any discharge at all. Toward the end, none at all. And this is what you'll hear from people, women who eat a raw food diet. They might have a little bit of discharge, if that much. Maybe 1 drop of blood, if a little bit. Hemorrhaging is not normal, whether it's in the lungs or the brain or the uterus or whatever. Organs are not supposed to hemorrhage like this. That's a sign something's not right. And the body is just trying to get rid of garbage. No different than a cold. No different than pneumonia. No different than all the stuff we see coming out of our skin. And then all those other diseases. It's just the waste matter backing up. So, I'm creating this video to give other women an opportunity to help other women understand that what I'm saying is really true, because I've done this before. I've put this out there, and tons of women will come back and say, yes, that's exactly my experience. I used to suffer horribly before I went raw, and now none at all. And then some people struggle for several months. This can be a little more complicated. I remember when Shazi used to post her experience, and she blogged it all and put it on the internet, about how it took her a couple years to finally overcome this erratic cycle. So birth control pills, when we start taking these things, we mess up our body. And there are no chemical solutions for controlling our body. We don't want to control the body unless we're bleeding to death or something. So we got to turn to nature. We got to live in tune to nature. And remember, pain is a warning sign to tell us that something is wrong. We shouldn't be bleeding and hemorrhaging uncontrollably like this. That's not a sign of health. And it's also not a sign of health if you're not ovulating. So always be sure that your body fat percentage doesn't go too low, ladies. I hope you know how important this is and how devastating it is to your health if that happens. And if you stop ovulating. It's a great thing not to have some of the discomfort that can come with what some women have to deal with. The bloating. When bloating water, there's a big connection between fluctuations in our fluid and our moods. And then all the other negative symptoms. I think this is reason enough for a lot of women to say, I want to eat a better diet. Because I'm one of the few or one of the many, that suffer way too long and too much. I'm telling you, my friends, we have to realize our choices have consequences. We have free will. Most of us just don't have the knowledge. And then if we find it, a lot of us aren't willing to do anything with it because we're not motivated enough. So this is a great way to be motivated. And if this doesn't motivate you, go down below and watch the Deborah Duncan show and watch how this lady got rid of her varicose veins on a 2-month solid food vacation. Another woman got rid of her bunion on a 3-month solid food vacation. Listen to the Dr. Roby interview. Go to my seminar on how to do a solid food vacation. And this is the best preparation to adopt a raw vegan diet. If you can go with a raw vegan diet right off the bat, not a problem, go with it. But if you want to make it easy and make the transition smooth and not struggle and build back tissue faster and deal with cleansing reactions better, do a solid food vacation for the appropriate length of time. No one knows how long that is, so you take it one day at a time. And I guarantee when you go the distance, you're in for a treat.